Welcome to another Down the Rabbit Hole video. I'm talking about a Wii game here, and this is probably one of the best fighting games ever made for the Wii. This is Tatsunoko vs. Capcom. This is specifically Ultimate All-Stars, which was the Western release. It's a little bit slightly different from the original Japanese release, but what's great about it is it's got a great selection of recognizable Capcom characters like Chun-li. It's also got a huge assortment of Tatsunoko characters. You can see you've got the various Gatchaman characters there, along with a whole bunch of others I'm not really familiar with. The guy with the sword, for example. And in addition to that, it just looks amazing, and it's a really great fighting game. I've talked a little bit about some of the Gatchaman characters when doing my old farts watching anime. You've seen me wearing the shirt with the Gatchaman logo on it, and we're going to be coming back to Gatchaman itself. But when this game was first talked about and how it's going to have all these different characters and it's going to potentially come to the West, they said, I was on board. I was like, oh yeah, definitely. I like a good fighting game. And when this game came out, I didn't have any other console, so it was the Wii or nothing for me, and I was very happy to get a proper fighting game coming out for it. And it's really great. It does not disappoint. But I want to talk a little bit about something that was kind of disappointing about Tatsunoko vs. Capcom in a surprising way. But first of all, let's just do a little bit of the game itself and show you how awesome it is. Alright, let's start off with a standard arcade fight here. Select your heroes. And because I always use that Gatchaman t-shirt when I'm doing the old farts watching anime videos, I'm going to go with both of the Gatchaman main characters here. We know them as Mark and Princess, but because this is the original Gatchaman version of these characters, and they're speaking all in Japanese in this game, by the way, in the Tatsunoko original, it is Ken the Eagle and Jun the Swan. Now what makes this game kind of different from standard Street Fighter-y type or any regular fighting games is instead of having a medium and a light and a heavy kick and punch, you've only got 3 types of attacks. It's basically the light attack, the medium attack, and the heavy attack. I think Capcom, when they made this game for the Wii, they decided, well, we don't know if people are going to have classic controllers or GameCube controllers. I'm using the classic to do this. So if people only have the Wii remote, they want to have it so that it's a control scheme that anybody can rely on. So as a result, you've only really got the 3 buttons, but you can pull off these great combos. It all depends on the way you use these different buttons in combination. Now, like a lot of the versus games, Street Fighter versus X-Men or Marvel versus Capcom, you've got the ability to swap out between your 2 partners here. So if I press the B button down here, I will switch to Jun. Oh dear, she's in trouble already. Jun's ability is to tag these like little grenades onto her opponent, and then that little special move is she sets off all the grenades. Does a great amount of damage too. She's actually a great character to play. Switch back to Ken here. So yeah, it's a really great game, and it's actually very much the descendant of all of those Versus Capcom games. The fact that they brought Tatsunoko as their character roster was a really great choice, I think. Oh dear, I'm up against Chun-li. That's not good. Oh yeah, this is Zoltar, but in the original Tatsunoko version, he's Kage Berg Katse, sorry. There comes Chun-li doing her thing. Now, I generally like to play Chun-li because I have taken on CPU as Chun-li quite a few times, and I find her quite a terrifying opponent, so I don't like the fact that I'm up against her already here. There she goes. That was close. So now I was mentioning that this is actually something of a disappointment, this game. What must I be thinking of? I sound like I really enjoy it. And certainly as a Wii fan in the period that this game came out, I was. But it's worth noting, when there was a big chance this game was never going to come to the West. I mean, it seemed as though Capcom was very concerned that nobody would even know the Tatsunoko licenses, wouldn't have any familiarity, beyond perhaps these Gatchaman characters. There's a lot of folks in this game that you may not know who they are, and so why would they bother bringing the game out? And what was really impressive, in addition to the fact that they did finally bring it, was they decided, the Capcom folks just said, you know what, we have to do this properly, we have to make this an online multiplayer game. And that's actually what my disappointment is with. So I want to address this, the Nintendo Wi-Fi connection. When Capcom decided to bring Tatsunoko vs. Capcom to the West, they added in online multiplayer, which was astounding. I mean, what an incredible achievement. And there was a good interview with one of the producers, and I'm going to butcher his name here, Ryota Niitsuma, I think it is. He was one of the main producers bringing this to the West. He talked about how they were running into quite a few problems of getting online multiplayer to work, and in one interview it was even proposed, well, why don't you stick a network cable into the back with the game so that people have a way to securely get their Wii online for this multiplayer. And what he had to say about that was kind of interesting, but I remember seeing an interview with somebody, and I don't remember who it was. I have tried researching to find the original article so that I could post it into this video. I can't find it, and it's annoying me. Somebody, it was either him, it was either Ryota Niitsuma, I hope I get that right. It might have been Seth Killian, who was for Capcom in the US. Somebody was talking about how they were having trouble optimizing the online code so that it would work well. And they were running into quite a few frustrations in working with Nintendo. It sounded very much from this interview, and it was on GoNintendo.com. I know that. I couldn't find it to do in time for this video. But the person who was doing this talk was saying Nintendo were very happy that they were bringing Tatsunoko vs. Capcom to the West. That's great. If you want to do online multiplayer, that's fantastic. Go at it. We're not really going to actually help you, though. And so Capcom had to find a happy medium. In an interview that I did find for this video, an interview with Ryota Niitsuma, he had been asked, well, how can you get what are some of the challenges with the Wi-Fi, or with the online multiplayer? And he had said, well, you're always going to get a bit of lag. You've got wireless controllers with the Wii as kind of the standard, and it uses Wi-Fi. It doesn't usually come with a wired connection. In fact, most people don't even connect their Wii online. So we want to minimize, or we have to assume that people have got very bad connections to their network before they even go out on the web. So we need to maximize and optimize the code. And somebody had asked him, well, why don't you talk to Nintendo about having some way of including a wire for people to plug in their Wii to their router or whatever. And interestingly, I found it quite fascinating that Ryota Niitsuma had said he didn't want to insult Nintendo by making such a proposal. He wants instead to make the Wi-Fi connection work, regardless of what way people have got their Wii set up. And I thought that was a very interesting perspective of the Japanese mindset. Like, we don't want to tell Nintendo what to do, is sort of the perspective that Capcom has. And Nintendo are sitting there going, hey, it's great that Capcom want to make this online multiplayer game. We're not going to tell them how to do that. And it just sort of languished with, okay, neither side is really prepared to make this online multiplayer game work with the Wii. And it was sort of an eye-opener to me. This was, unfortunately, this game was the one that kind of made me realize that the Wii is not like a PlayStation or an Xbox where online multiplayer is just an understood necessity that you've got to have it. And unfortunately, this was the beginning of the end for my appreciation of the Wii. I mean, don't get me wrong, I really like this game, and I have loved other games that came out after this game. But it just sort of occurred to me, it's like, oh, this is really a teller, isn't it? Neither side want to actually establish and make an infrastructure so people can play this game online, just like is so intuitive and basic and pedestrian for the Sony and Microsoft consoles. Like, why aren't they just making this work the way it works for the other two consoles? I don't know. I don't really have an answer, but it informed me of something I've been slowly building up a bit of frustration with the Wii at this point. I had seen various Call of Duty games come out. I had seen Street Fighter IV come out, and I thought, okay, why doesn't that work? Why aren't they making a version of that for the Wii? The Wii has sold huge quantities. It's in everybody's home. We want a fighting game, like, you know, there are all these others, these Blaze Blues, and there was Smash Brothers. You know, obviously Nintendo is not averse to having a fighting game. Why don't we get Street Fighter IV? It's not like it's really, really graphically intensive. It looks very pretty on the high-definition consoles, but you could make a version for the Wii. And then when Tatsunoko came out, it was like, oh, that's why. Because neither side really wants to work with each other. Nintendo don't really seem to have online multiplayer as a high priority, shall we say. And then other things became more obvious around this time as well. There were no demos of WiiWare. There was no achievement system. The friend code thing was becoming just really, really stifling to a lot of gaming experiences. And unfortunately, I kind of lost my enthusiasm for the Wii around this time. Don't get me wrong, I do like it in retrospect. I am glad that I have it. I've had a lot of great experiences with it. And what it does right, and what it did when it initially launched, how it kind of inspired a whole new type of gaming. I love all of that. I'm not here like bashing the Wii or Nintendo at all, but when this game came out, I suddenly realized, oh, they really don't understand what players like myself are really looking for, do they? That's unfortunate. Oh well. So that's sort of why the Tatsunoko vs. Capcom experience for me was a bit of a turning point. I realized, you know what, this console and these companies they don't have players like me as a high priority. Nintendo would rather sell Pokemon games, and Capcom, I hand it to them for making this game and for bringing it to the West and having the fun and excitement they did. But when the variations of Street Fighter came out, Street Fighter 4 came out, you had Super Street Fighter Ultimate Edition, Super Street Fighter Arcade Edition, all of those different versions. There was never going to be a Wii version, ever. And I was just like, okay, well, there we go. That's unfortunate. However, tell you what, let's end on a more positive note there. Let's go back to the arcade version. Select your heroes. So this time, let's choose a couple of Capcom characters, and there's two in mind that I want to specifically play. Morrigan is a classic character since the Darkstalkers days, and there's a reason I want to play her in this game. And of course, now I played Darkstalkers back in the arcades, and I'm going to be talking about that game someday, eventually. Now take a close look at Morrigan. So this is actually the first game in a long time, like a decade or something, since Morrigan had had any update to her art style. She is, as I say, dates back to the Darkstalkers game in the arcades and exists on PlayStation 1, a variety of other locations, and several other fighting games as well. I've got SNK vs. Capcom, where she appears there along with Chun-li and a variety of other characters. But what's interesting is, even in that GameCube game, it is her old 2D arcade version of herself. She has not had any updates to her character or to her art style until Tatsunoko vs. Capcom came out. So that's something else that's kind of significant about this particular title is this is Morrigan, and for the first time in ages, she finally got herself an update for her art, which is great. Alright, Chun-li, let's go in and finish these two fellas off here. Alright, so I'm going to finish the video there. I just wanted to have my two ladies beat the crap out of somebody. Yeah, first time Morrigan got an update, so Tatsunoko vs. Capcom gets some pretty high praise from me for that reason alone. It's a great title. It's just unfortunate that the online didn't work out. Until next time, we'll see you down the rabbit hole.